There is no doubt that Arizona Sunshine is a fan favorite classic, and today this classic returns on PSVR2 in a new look. So will it deliver a true next-gen VR experience? Is it going to feel like a built from the ground up PSVR2 game? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at Arizona Sunshine Remake. This is Vertigo Games' latest release on PSVR2. It actually releases today, October 17th. Now, as I'm sure you all are familiar with Arizona Sunshine, but in case you're not, this is a classic zombie shooter game in which you play as someone who is simply trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. First things first, you should know that this review is coming from someone who is experiencing the game for the very first time, so there will be no comparisons with the PSVR1 version. And I also want to let you know that I did not test the multiplayer component. You see, Arizona Sunshine Remake can be played solo or in co-op. There is the 4-hour-long campaign, 2 DLCs that are set before the events of the main story that should take you around 2 to 3 hours to finish, and there is also the famous Horde mode with online leaderboards, which you can play in 4 different locations. I played all of these solo, so I can't talk about the co-op mode, but there shouldn't be any problems. Alright, now let's talk first impressions, and to be honest with you guys, the first impressions are good, but not great. I mean, the first thing that you'll notice when you start a new game is the graphics, right? The visual presentation of the game. How does the game look? And while Arizona Sunshine doesn't look bad by any means, it actually looks decent and it can look great, especially in dark areas where the black is pitch black and the light truly shines thanks to the OLED display. Still, you can't help but notice that the image looks a little bit softer and blurrier than it should be. It's clearly not on the same level as the top dogs on PSVR2 in terms of high fidelity, like the Resident Evil games for example. It has that Horizon Call of the Mountains look. And I think the main reasons behind this is the reprojection, although it's not that noticeable, and the absence of dynamic foveated rendering, which by the way, this game should be able to run at 90Hz native minimum on PSVR2. There is no reason for this to run at 60Hz with reprojection, and we'll talk more about the performance of the game later, but yeah, in terms of graphics and clarity, the game gets a 7.5 from me. Aside from the soft look, there are some other graphical issues like the shimmery foliage and a little bit of aliasing here and there. If you bring your weapon close to your eyes when you're aiming, let's say with a sniper rifle or with an assault rifle, you might see the interior of the weapon. If you get too close to cars or walls, the screen might turn black, and although Vertigo Games did confirm to me that this is intentional, it still seems to me like a weird design choice. And then there is that one bizarre bug that I experienced only once during my entire playthrough, which was pretty funny. There was this one dude with his upper half literally invisible, and I couldn't shoot him. So to sum up, in terms of visual fidelity, the game looks alright. It's not the sharpest looking game I've ever seen, but it's also not the blurriest. Certainly not on the same level as Metal Hellsinger VR that launched earlier this month. There are some minor issues like the shimmery vegetation and a little bit of aliasing here and there, but none of that detracted from the experience. A word of advice though, since the Mura is very noticeable in Arizona Sunshine Remake, I'd highly recommend you lower the in-game brightness as much as you can in bright scenes, preferably set it to -0.50, which is the lowest brightness value in the settings. That way you'll get a much better image in my opinion, with significantly less Mura and a better contrast overall. Now in terms of performance, the game runs at 60Hz reprojected to 120. Most of the time the frame rate is consistent, which is great. However, I did experience some occasional frame drops, specifically when I was shooting a horde of zombies up close. Not a big deal, but I had to let you know. Of course, I can't talk about Arizona Sunshine without acknowledging the floating hands. And I know most people, including myself, don't really care about this, but to some it's kind of immersion breaking. And I understand where they're coming from. The story is pretty straightforward. You're a survivor in a post-apocalyptic world looking for other survivors Just the classic survival story, nothing too crazy, no plot twists or anything like that. You're just going from point A to point B. There are no puzzles, most of the time you're looking for keys to unlock doors, and they're pretty easy to find. The progression in general is pretty seamless, and honestly, I appreciated that. Not every game needs to be complex and you have to spend half an hour trying to solve a puzzle or looking for something. This is just a linear zombie shooter, and I enjoyed that. I don't have much to say about the music and the audio and the fade voices and gunshots, etc. Everything sounds exactly as it should be. The only thing that stood out to me in this area has to be the voice acting. It is absolutely phenomenal. The actor who did the voice performance of the protagonist here nailed it. Plus the humor and funny reactions. It's all top notch and definitely one of the highlights of the game.
Hello? Anyone here?
Hey, Fred. What you doing? Chilling?
Now he does speak a lot, and to some people that might be annoying, but me personally, I loved everything I heard. Let's talk about the gameplay, which is definitely the most important aspect in a zombie shooter. I mean, if you want to make a good zombie shooter, then all the shooting, the slicing, the melee attacks, the gore, the dismemberment, everything needs to be great. It's what makes or breaks a zombie shooter. And I'm happy to report that in terms of gameplay, Arizona Sunshine Remake is one hell of a zombie shooter. It is so good that I think it's now my favorite VR zombie shooter ever. Don't get me wrong, I love The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, but that one isn't pushing for realism. It has its own unique stylized art style which is great. In the realistic zombie shooters genre, however, objectively speaking, I think Arizona Sunshine Remake should be high up there on the list. The shooting is awesome, super responsive and fluid, and it feels so good thanks to the stellar implementation of haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. Like seriously guys, I cannot stress this enough. The haptics and triggers in this game are incredible. It's so good that you actually feel it when you fire up that last bullet. And there is nothing more satisfying than the feeling you get when you successfully slice up a thread with a melee weapon. Weapon variety is no issue here. There are multiple weapons thrown around in the game, so you have so many options to choose from as your main weapon and both your secondary weapons. Oddly enough though, you can't keep the sniper rifle with you. You can store one grenade or one melee weapon literally inside your left wrist, which I found to be bizarre, but hey, it works. And you can also store some food in your right wrist. Of course, eating food will restore your health, so you better keep that sausage ready for when you need it.
Yeah, boy.
Also, finding ammo is no issue here, so don't worry about wasting ammo and you don't have to be like me, spending too much time looking for ammo in every room, every car, every trash can, every corner. That's not necessary. I don't know, however, if that can change if you play at a higher difficulty. It's worth noting that I played the game in its default difficulty and I found it to be fairly challenging since I used manual reloading. But then again, I did not die not even once. So if you're looking for a tougher challenge, maybe opt for the third or fourth difficulty, but as for the most of you guys, I think the default difficulty will give you a balanced experience. Getting back to the gameplay side of things here, I like that the game has a lot of interactivity going for it. It reminded me a lot of Saints and Sinners. You can open drawers, trash cans, car doors, etc. You do everything manually, which is what you want to see in a VR game. The gore in Arizona Sunshine Remake is amazing. You can shoot off legs, arms, rip off heads with a clean cut. The dismemberment system works really well, and the way Fred's body reacts to bullets or melee attacks is always a sight to behold. Not everything is perfect, of course, as there are some obvious drawbacks here, and perhaps the most annoying one for me was the absence of a hybrid grip mode. I was shocked when I did not find it. Vertigo Games, please add a hybrid grip mode for Metro. It's the most comfortable and definitely the most convenient for most players. I also did not like the fact that there are loading screens, nor that I have to teleport off ledges. There is also the issue of smooth turning not functioning sometimes, and just so you know, the game does not pause when you press the PS button, let's say to check notifications or adjust visibility for example. I learned that the hard way. My headset slipped a little bit so I went to adjust it using the adjust visibility menu, and when I went back to the game, a Fred was right in front of my face saying,
Surprise, motherfucker!
Yeah, I almost had a heart attack. And that was the singular moment that I felt scared during my entire playthrough of Arizona Sunshine. It's not a scary game at all. If you played games like Madison, The Exorcist Legion VR, Resident Evil 8, or even 4, this is gonna be a walk in the park in terms of horror. That is, unless you're sensitive to zombies. In that case, this will be a nightmare. There are too many threads in this game, and so many types of them too, yet there are no actual boss fights, which I can't help but feel that is such a wasted opportunity. On the flip side, however, I want to compliment how the game seems very balanced, between bright and dark, small numbers of zombies to actual hordes. The pacing is on point, and that's something a lot of games nowadays don't have. Alright, I think I said more than enough about Arizona Sunshine Remake on PSVR2, and it's now time for the verdict. So to answer the questions that I asked at the beginning of this video, does Arizona Sunshine Remake deliver a true next-gen VR experience? Does it feel like a built from the ground up PSVR2 game? I would say it gets very close, but it's still not quite there. The gameplay is incredible, the gore, the weapons, the environments, the voice acting, it has a lot going for it, it really does. But it's slightly lower than desired resolution, with the reprojection and a few other caveats like the absence of a hybrid grip mode, the loading screens and the occasional forced teleportation, makes me give this game only a 7.5 out of 10. I say only a 7.5, which makes it sound like a bad score when it's actually a decent review score, but it's because I want to give it a much higher score since I enjoyed it a lot. But unfortunately I can't. And that's gonna have to do it for this review. If you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, and for more PSVR2 news, reviews, and discussions, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turn on the notifications as well. Thank you for watching and for all of your support. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, take care.